All right, folks, welcome back to the College Super Picks podcast. Conference championships are done. Alabama upsets Georgia and ends their 27-game winning streak. Michigan beats Iowa 26-0, finishing 13-0. They're going to be the 1 seed. Washington, they stay undefeated against Oregon. Michael Penix Jr. still making a case for the Heisman, as he reminded us he's still in that conversation. We'll talk about that later. And then you've got Florida State with their third-string quarterback, Brock Glenn, still finding a way to get a 10-point victory. The defense really helping them out. 13-0 for them. And you can't help but wonder, will Georgia make the playoffs? It's honestly highly unlikely with Alabama probably jumping up. Will Alabama make the playoffs? Texas is 12-1. They're making a case for it. Those three teams battling it out for that 4th spot. I think they're going to give it to Alabama. The Bulldogs, that is just a terrible way to miss the playoffs. 12-0, rank 1 literally the entire season, and one loss by 3 points makes you miss the playoffs. Kirby Smart definitely believes they should still be in there. Georgia is still the best team on paper in college football. Ohio State, they've got one loss, but there's no way they can make it in. They're not going to be able to make it. They just didn't play in a conference championship. So they'll finish at number 7. Oregon lost, so they're out of it. And then everybody else just wasn't ever in it. Liberty, they're 13-0, and they actually might play in a New Year's Six Bowl after Tulane gets upset by SMU and their backup quarterback. Anyways, let's get right to the meat of this episode. First thing we're going to talk about, I've hinted at it, is my top 10 teams to end the season going into bowl weeks. So, coming in at number 10, I've got Penn State. The Nittany Lions went 10-2. They had a great year. Their only 2 losses were to top 10 teams, and so got to have them at number 10. At number 9, I've got Missouri. The Tigers have had a great year. I had them going 4-8. That's not what happened. They went 10-2. Cody Schrader, Luther Burden, Brady Cook, just an incredible quarterback, running back, wide receiver trio right there. Missouri, they're at number 9. At number 8, I've got Oregon. Had a great year, just 2 losses to Washington. Washington's obviously undefeated. They have Michael Penix. Bo Nix has been great. Troy Franklin's going to be an NFL star. Dan Lanning is a really good coach over there at Oregon. I like what he's built over there thus far. And you'd think they would be rocking with Ty Thompson if I asked you at the beginning of this year. But for next year, they might fish into the transfer portal and find an even better quarterback than Ty Thompson. And the future is really bright, obviously going into the Big Ten for the Ducks. Very possible that they go into the transfer portal this offseason. Moving up to number 7, and that's the Texas Longhorns. I hate them so much, but they are 12-1. I got to have them ahead of these next few teams. At number 6, I've got Ohio State. The Buckeyes, they had a great year. I still think they're the second best team on paper after Georgia. I had them winning the national championship. They're a really, really good team. At number 5, I've got the Georgia Bulldogs. That one loss to Alabama honestly wasn't a very good one. Alabama's worse than they have been the past few years this year. Maybe not last year, but definitely with all the other seasons they've had, all the national championships and stuff. Nick Saban, though, he owns Georgia. He crushes their dreams once again, winning another SEC title. Moving onward to number 4. That's Alabama. They've been really good. Number 3, I'm going to go with Florida State on this one. The Seminoles had a great season, undefeated. They're probably going to get blown out in the playoff just without Jordan Travis. Didn't look great against Florida State. Hopefully Tate Rodemaker will be back because Brock Glenn looked pretty terrible. Moving on to number 2, Washington. Michael Penix looks good. Dylan Johnson looks good. Rome Odunze is into my top 10 Heisman list. He's been incredible. Jalen Polk is another probably second-round NFL draft pick. He's just been so good. This Washington defense as well. Braylon Trice is a top 20 pick. They are just filled with NFL prospects. Kalen DeBoer has built a great team over there. And we're going to move on to the number one team, which I hate to say it, but it's the Michigan Wolverines. The Filthy Cheaters, they're number one. Blake Corum, he's probably still the best running back in the league. J.J. McCarthy doesn't have to do too much, but he's really good. Roman Wilson is a very solid wide receiver one out there in Michigan, and they've just got an incredible defense, a great O-line. Zach Zinter is a first-round pick over there at Michigan. And I think the Wolverines, they might be the favorites to win the national championship heading into this college football playoff, depending on whether or not they put Alabama or Georgia at number 4. Next order of business is we're going to talk about the Heisman. Here are my top 5 Heisman candidates. At number 5 and 4, they don't really matter. Like it's just they're out of it. Neither of these players are really have a chance, but still top 5 for the Heisman is pretty darn good. At number 5, I've got Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams had a great season. It's not his fault that his defense is terrible. The reigning Heisman winner, good season at number 5. At number 4, I've got, of course, Marvin Harrison Jr., number 1 wide receiver this year. Not stat-wise, but on paper for sure. He's going to be one of the first players to go off the board, top 2, top 3 at worst NFL draft pick. I've got him at number 4. He won't win the Heisman, but the highest a wide receiver has finished since Devonta Smith won it back in 2020. At number 3, I've got Michael Penix Jr. I know he just beat Oregon, but 9 interceptions is a lot, and I don't think that's Heisman worthy, especially when you have Bo Nix out here having such a good season. I've got Penix at number 3. Last year he was 8th. He's had a great year, and I think he's going to be a first-round draft pick. So, at number 2 is Bo Nix, another first-round draft pick. He'll be the 3rd quarterback to go off the board. He's been great. He's the number 1 completion percentage quarterback in the country, number 1 touchdown to interception ratio in the country. But come on, it's got to be Jaden Daniels at number 1. Over 1,000 rushing, 4,000 passing. He's been incredible. Total touchdowns is number 1 in all of college football. No one is better than Jaden Daniels. He has been dominant this season. We've seen immense growth from him since last year. And really, he was one of my best quarterbacks going into this year with just what we had seen last year. He has exceeded that and much, much more. Jaden Daniels is just an incredible quarterback all around. One of the best in the league. Another first round, maybe early second round, but probably in the 20-something picks. Around like 25 in the first round. Kind of going around the same area as Michael Penix. Either way, he'll be a top 5 quarterback to go off the board. He's going to win the Heisman. And the meat of this episode, which is the transfer portal. The transfer portal has opened up, and we've got some great quarterbacks. We already have a ton of 4-stars, and we're going to go through those guys. Let me know if you want to hear some other positions, maybe 3-star quarterbacks. Maybe you want to hear where I've got Brendan Sorsby, Tyler Shuck going. Max Johnson from my Texas A&M Aggies, he's going to North Carolina. He's going to replace Drake May. Here are the best, all the 4-star transfer portal quarterbacks, and my 4 fits for each quarterback going into this year. Starting off with Grayson McCall, you'll see on your screen that I have Michigan State, Mississippi State, Auburn, and Ohio State for McCall. 3 straight Sun Belt Offensive Player of the Year awards for Grayson McCall in 2020, 2021, and 2022. Was a 3-star recruit, redshirted in 2019. In 2023, threw more interceptions than usual, and even then it was just 6. He's so pinpoint accurate, and he doesn't throw any interceptions. He's a really good quarterback. Definitely Power 5 worthy. That's why you won't see any other G5 schools around here. But he did get injured, missed a lot of the season. Coming back for year number 6. And I've got Grayson McCall going to one of these 4 schools. Michigan State, obviously. Kattenhauser's transferring. Noah Kim is transferring. They're quarterbackless. They're in it for DJ Uiagalelei. Obviously, the links to the head coach, Uiagalelei, played at Oregon State this year. But I really like the idea of Grayson McCall going to Michigan State. Mississippi State, again, and Mississippi State and Auburn, just middling, bottom-tier SEC schools, both in immense need of a quarterback. And Ohio State, Ryan Day, has basically made it clear that Kyle McCord did a lot, but did not do enough this season. McCord, he's probably going to enter the transfer portal because Ryan Day is going to be searching for the best of the best. He doesn't want to miss the playoffs again. He doesn't want to lose to Michigan again. And that's why Ohio State's up there for Grayson McCall. Moving on, we're going to talk about Tyler Van Dyke. Tyler Van Dyke from Miami, really good player, injured for some of 2022. 2023 just hit such a cold streak in that second half of the season, really ruined his stats. I keep saying this, but I had him in my Heisman watch at one point. He's been really good. 2021 was definitely his best year. Wasn't quite as good as I thought in 2023, but he was still very serviceable and led Miami to a 7-5 season. Obviously just tore up my Texas A&M Aggies. And that's why I've got Auburn, Florida State, Louisville, and Syracuse. He's from the Northeast. There have been a lot of links to Syracuse. Obviously, they're rebuilding. They're in a big rebuild right now. Fired their coach. I think he could go to Syracuse, but in his final year, I think Louisville, Auburn, and Florida State fit a little bit better as just better rosters. Louisville, Jack Plummer is graduating, so they're in search of a new quarterback. Tyler Van Dyke would definitely be that guy for them. Florida State, it's clear that they need a quarterback. Jordan Travis isn't coming back, obviously. He's been in college football for 7 billion years. So, could Tyler Van Dyke transfer over to rival Florida State? Or could he go to the new SEC and head over to Auburn? They need a quarterback. Hugh Freeze just had another season of mediocrity, barely making a bowl. They lost by 21 to New Mexico State. They got embarrassed by Alabama, 4th and goal from the 31. They need a star quarterback, and Tyler Van Dyke could be that guy if Hugh Freeze gets him the right resources. Auburn is a run-heavy team, so they could kind of take the stress off of Tyler Van Dyke's shoulders and help him have a good season. That's why he's number 1 in my 4 fits. Moving on to Will Rogers. You look, just 2 years ago in 2021, Will Rogers led the Power 5 in both completion percentage and passing yards. He was second in passing yards in the entire college football, only behind, of course, Bailey Zappi. And that leads us to Miami, Western Kentucky, Michigan, and USC. You see Western Kentucky on there, Bailey Zappi's alma mater, the one guy who beat out Will Rogers back in 2021 for that yardage title. Either way, he just seems like a Western Kentucky quarterback. Obviously, they are with Mississippi State straying away from the air raid offense after Mike Leach left. Western Kentucky is now kind of the air raid team in college football right now. And that's where Will Rogers had his success. That's where he could go. At number 1, I've got him heading over to play for Mario Cristobal at Miami. It just seems like a great fit. They were one of his top schools coming out of high school. That just seems like the best fit for me, in my opinion. Michigan over there, they need a quarterback. They're going to go into the portal. They could definitely go grab Will Rogers. But I think they might go for a younger guy with a little more upside. Will Rogers really struggled without the air raid offense. Obviously, it wasn't his fault. His team was bad. His coach was bad. And then you got USC. They're another team. They're going to be looking for a quarterback. And I thought I'd throw them in there for Will Rogers. There have been some rumors that the Trojans have been linked to Rogers. Moving on to DJ Uiagalelei. Uiagalelei, he started out 5-star recruit at Clemson, filled in for Trevor Lawrence his true freshman year. Then in his sophomore year, he threw more interceptions than touchdowns, really disappointed everyone. In 2022, he lived up more to his 2021 expectations, but that wasn't enough to forgive how he had been what was holding Clemson back for 2 straight seasons. You could argue 3 straight because he started the loss against Notre Dame in his freshman year. So he transferred out back closer to home on the West Coast to Oregon State. Now he's conferenceless, so he's going to enter the transfer portal. Obviously, he could go to Michigan State. They definitely could be on this list, but I've got 4 schools that I think DJ Uiagalelei would be a great fit for. Starting off with Kentucky. Mark Stoops, he just seems like a kind of guy he would bring in. He's done that. He's always bringing in a transfer quarterback. Devin Leary, Will Levis, now DJ Uiagalelei. I can definitely see it. I could definitely see DJU heading over to the SEC, playing in the new SEC for 1 year, and then going into the NFL. Also, on this 4 fits, I'm going to add a 5th fit, and that is the NFL. DJU, he's still deciding whether or not he's going to come back to college for another year or head off to play in the pros. I think he'll stay. I think he'll head on to a really good team, as all these teams are either in the new SEC with Kentucky and Auburn, really high conference prestige, could build his stock. And then Oregon and Florida State. Oregon, they're searching for a quarterback. It could be a real backstabber if DJ Uiagalelei just left Oregon State for Oregon, in-state rival, headed over to the Big Ten. Florida State, again, they're looking for a starting quarterback. He could head back to the East Coast, head back to the ACC, play for his old team's rivals at Florida State, and play with Mike Norvell. They got a really good offense over there. Definitely would be a great spot for DJU. Also, he's a big, strong-armed, massive quarterback, so he could already have a lot of draft stock and jump up in the draft higher than we have him right now. But I think it would be good for DJ Uiagalelei to stick around. And honestly, I think any of these 4 teams would be a great fit for him. Moving on, we got Riley Leonard. Just so many rumors of Notre Dame and Marcus Freeman trying to pick him up. I think that's really the only team that has a chance. Auburn's had some rumors. Obviously, you had to throw my Aggies on there because of the links to Mike Elko. He could follow his old head coach. And then Washington, they're just looking for a quarterback. Riley Leonard could be that guy. But really, it's like a 95% chance he goes to Notre Dame. There's just a ton of rumors. They're all over the place. He'd be a great fit there. And I feel like that would be a good spot for Riley Leonard to have a big comeback season in his senior season. Next up, you got Will Howard. Howard is a very good quarterback. 33 total touchdowns this year at Kansas State, led them to an 8-4 season. He started in reserve in 2020, started in reserve in 2022. Now he's the main starter for 2023, had high hopes, and he exceeded them. And so, you see I've got Michigan on there. It's just such a good fit. He just seems like such a Michigan quarterback. He's got a little scrambling ability, tall, decent-sized white quarterback. I think he just is such a good fit at Michigan. There's been a ton of rumors that Washington could pick him up. Obviously, there's been rumors of Missouri and Nebraska, but there have also been some rumors that he could head over to the ACC, go play for Mario Cristobal at Miami, turn that team around, or he could go to Louisville, one of the more surprising teams this year, and play in the ACC. I think Michigan is a really good fit for Howard. I think he could go there for a season and really put up some monster stats, maybe even win a national championship, play in the new Big Ten. It seems like a really good fit. Next up, we got KJ Jefferson. KJ Jefferson, I've got South Carolina up there. I've got Auburn, Miami, and Mississippi State. He seems like a great fit at South Carolina. He seems like the exact kind of guy that Shane Beamer would go after. He's super consistent, 2,000-plus yards every year, 20 touchdowns, great rushing stats. He's a big guy, 240 pounds. I put Hugh Freeze and Auburn up there. I put Mississippi State. He wouldn't be the kind of guy that they would need 2 years ago with the air raid offense, but he could definitely fit the new Mississippi State team that they're building over there. And I also put Mario Cristobal at Miami over there. He could want a change of scenery. He's been on a bottom-tier SEC school, and these are 3 bottom-tier SEC schools that I put here. So That's KJ Jefferson. Definitely a very solid quarterback. Moving onward to Cam Ward. Cam Ward is transferring for the second time. He played at Incarnate Word for 2 years, which is a lot closer to his hometown in Texas. Also, transferring to Washington State and having another breakout career. He's been a really good quarterback. You look at the stats on your screen, and he has been very solid. He was up in my Heisman watch back when Wazoo was in the rankings before they started losing a ton of games. I know he's from Texas, but he could definitely stay on the West Coast. I like Dan Lanning at Oregon. Same thing with Washington. Put South Carolina up there. They're in need of a quarterback. Playing in the new SEC could be very enticing. But with all the news of the money that's being thrown at Cam Ward, Ohio State and Ryan Day are in a ton of the rumors. Definitely a kind of guy that Ryan Day would go after to replace Kyle McCord. He's put up some great stats, and with the incredible resources at wide receiver that Ryan Day builds year in and year out, Cam Ward could have a Heisman season next year if he goes over to Ohio State. I still think Oregon is the best fit, but he just seems like he's transferring out to the Big Ten would be a good fit for Cam Ward. Obviously, not going to stay at Washington State. They're conference-less, and so he's going to be moving on in the transfer portal. Those are my picks. And finishing out with Dante Moore. The former 5-star recruit is currently the highest projected transfer player for his entire career. Definitely not as good immediately and not as experienced as these other guys. But with a freshman who has a good half season of starting, you may see those stats and they're not near as enticing as everyone else. I put Washington up there. He's from Michigan. He could stick around on the West Coast. Definitely could be a guy that Kalen DeBoer goes after and could have a quarterback battle with Dylan Morris and could build up that experience in the Big Ten. Michigan and Michigan State here, for obvious reasons, definitely reminds you of C.J. Stroud a lot. He's a kind of undersized. He's got that same play style as C.J. Stroud. Definitely a guy that Ryan Day could go after. I've also got rival USC. Obviously, definitely seems like he would be sticking around in the Big Ten, leaving UCLA. They're also heading to the Big Ten. I like Washington the most. Definitely Michigan has the Michigan and Michigan State and Ohio State have the most rumors for Dante Moore, but I really like Washington right now. Even though they may be like his 6th or 7th school in some other people's rankings, I like Washington as my number one school for Dante Moore. Going over to Seattle playing for Kalen DeBoer could really help Dante Moore progress into one of the best quarterbacks in the nation as soon as next year, being a 5-star recruit. So that'll do it for this episode. Nice little episode, filling you in on the transfer portal, talking about college football playoff, talking about the Heisman. My bowl predictions could come out soon. Definitely going to be making a ton of picks once bowl weeks start rolling in. I'm hoping to pick every single bowl game so I can give you my winner, see what my record is. Didn't finish out strong as my picks were pretty terrible for rivalry week. Either way, that's going to be it for this episode. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next week for bowl weeks for the Army-Navy game. I'm out.